And I don't want to even have to be associated with him. It's like touching a tar baby, like touching a tar baby, like touching a tar baby, like touching a tar baby.
Well, I'd kind of like to talk about his comment. I thought that was rather insensitive. Or do you have any plans for outreach to our community? I mean,
and sir, I'd be happy to talk to you about that. I mean, we've sent an apology to the president.
How about, as somebody said, how about apologizing to all the people in the military that probably voted, some of which are in this district, that would also find that term offensive?
So how does somebody achieve the position that he has and be that ignorant to not know that that is derogatory?
Well, sure. Look, it was not the best choice of words. However, if we can read the context of the quote. I don't know if you've seen it or.
But even to have that term as part of your vocabulary,
there is no context that justifies that.
Well, and that's, you know, obviously people have taken offense. The congressman took ownership of that remark and has apologized immediately to the president.
And I don't want to even have to be associated with him. It's like touching a tar baby. And I don't want to even have to be associated with him. It's like touching a tar baby.
I want to hear an apology to me as a person in this community. Not because I'm black or because I'm any other color. I am offended.
And ma'am, and like I said, the congressman meant no offense. He took ownership.
I don't believe that.
I do not believe it.
Or he's an idiot.
It shows who he is.
He has to be an idiot to use a word like that.
Okay, hold on.
He never said that about Nancy Pelosi or Harry Reid.
Okay, no, and we'll get your point. Hold on 1 second.
Claiming ignorance for that remark is just not acceptable. So I'd like to see him get an education firsthand himself about what it is to live on the other side of the fence.
The congressman has been on record. We have worked with members of the African community for several years.
African or African American?
African American, and
they're different.
Okay.
May I speak?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if I'm more offended that he said it or that he didn't know what it could mean. It's pretty hard to study civil rights in America without knowing that that term was derogatory. So, I understand you said in education, but I think he needs to be educated not just in the present, but in the history of this country, which is, a major part of it is civil rights related.
Well, of course it is.
So, I think I'm a little more offended that he didn't know. Okay, so let's say I believe you.
Okay.
And let's say that he didn't mean it to be derogatory.
Sure.
He should have. That in itself is offensive, though. That he didn't know. He should know. You should know when you're in his position about civil rights in America.
I also think we need an apology to all the citizens of this community because regardless of your skin color, your ethnicity, he is voting against us. He is voting for big oil. He is voting against Medicare. He is voting against Social Security. A lot of us, our lives depend on our retirements. And people like Doug Lamborn is not looking out for me. He's looking out for his rich benefactors. And I think it's time people took him to task because there are a lot of kids, African American children, white children, Hispanic children whose educations are going to be curtailed because of the policies of this man. He's not looking out for the community.
He represents us. So when you say he just apologize to the president, he represents us.
We sent out an apology within hours of this story.
And I don't want to even have to be associated with him. It's like touching a tar baby. And I don't want to even have to be associated with him. It's like touching a tar baby.
And we'd like to see a reflection of his changed viewpoint in the way he votes.
Okay, I don't understand what you mean by that. He doesn't vote based on racial lines.
No, he votes based on money.
He votes
Can
on
you clarify
class.
that position? Can you be specific on that?
Because he supports the big oil, the big companies, big corporations, the money people.
It's against women's rights.
Here's an example. There was a drive to try and close some loopholes for the big oil companies, for example. The big oil companies post record profits every single quarter. they pay no taxes, and then on top of that, they get tax rebates. We were trying to just get those tax rebates revoked, because they really don't need them.
Sure.
And that's not something that Mr. Lamborn supports. He would rather give the money to them than give the money to school children for lunches, give the money to poor people so they can pay rent.
Is there a time that he would ever be here that people could come and actually talk to him instead of you having to take all this?
Sure. August recess is actually happening now. The Congress adjourned with the vote last night.
Is he going to
We tried it last August, Dan, it didn't work. I mean, you were always very gracious. I have to say, you're wonderful, but we get promises, we get open invitations, but they're never.
And I think what we're going to be doing is we are going to be doing some town halls. Obviously, there are a lot of issues, whatever side of the aisle.
And town halls are completely drowned out.
But you have to let us into the town hall, and not stuff with Republican women.
But I went to couple.
There's been a couple, and they've been very open.
And the monthly Republican meeting at the country club.
And that was absolutely.
You can't stand out there because the waitress has to get through the service.
Well, no, and sir,
that was it.
No, you're right. That was bad. It was never intended to be a town hall, quite frankly. Whether it's a Democrat plan or a Republican plan, the fact is that Medicare is insolvent. And it's going to have to be
That's not true.
Well, like the CMS actuaries who run Medicare.
Constant war
right now.
It's constant, it's war.
I can show you. I mean, that's just the truth, whether you want to acknowledge it or not.
I understand that right now the funds are having problems. What I'm saying is that for the past 50 years, we have taken the Social Security funds and Medicare funds too, and used them for general tax purposes.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Now, sorry, continue.
The government guaranteed these benefits to us a long time ago when we were much younger. And now the government is saying that some of us won't get the benefits that we thought we were going to get.
Well, and that's why any reforms, I mean, and we're just talking about the Ryan plan. There are several reforms in Congress right now, and I want to be clear. There are several reforms in Congress. They can't all be associated into one plan. But with the Ryan plan, it would be people 55 years and younger who the reforms would impact.
Just say that I find a lot of difficulty with the statement that we cannot afford to take care of our own people. We are taking care of people everywhere in the world.
But here's, and sir, you're right, and that's, I mean, you could segue into all sorts of things. The problem is right now, entitlement spending consists of 2/3 of our budget.
What about voting to support that the wealthy pay taxes?
Yeah, why not?
Why?
What do you? Okay, well, I'm sorry, and just so I just want. Top 1%. Okay, the top 10% pay 70% of the taxes.
That's a lie. That's not true. Sorry.
Excuse me, I would like to ask right now on the record, two specific questions of the Congressman.
Can you grab my cards? I'm sorry, what's
And I don't expect you to answer these for the Congressman. Two specific questions. One is, if he's so concerned about unaffordable entitlements, why is he one of the leaders in trying to repeal the Affordable Care Act, which is incorrectly known as Obamacare, which the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office has estimated will save the country, the treasurer, $900 billion in 10 years. Second question about taxes. There's a man named John Paulson who's a hedge fund manager. John Paulson made a little upwards of $5 billion in tax year 2010. Through a loophole known as carried interest, John Paulson and a number of other people pay a top marginal rate of 15%.
Exactly.
I pay a top marginal rate of 28%, and I make $83,000 per year as a college professor with 30 years experience. Could you please ask the congressman why John Paulson should pay a lower marginal rate than I? And again, for the record, if John Paulson were to pay the 35% marginal rate, he should be paying instead of the 15% rate. From that one person in 1 year, that would bring in $1 billion to the United States Treasury.
Yes. For taxes, it's really not a matter of how much all the wealthy people pay in its entirety. It's a matter of percentage. And you know that as well as I know that. And your soundbite sounds better the way you say it, but what's fair is the percentage.
Is it fair, okay, is it fair that if I make, and I don't know what the Social Security rate will be for this year, I think it's 102.5 maybe, if you make up to 102,000, 106, okay, let's just round it to 106. I have to pay on every dime of that money, I have to pay into Social Security. But for everybody that makes over that $106,000, they don't have to pay anything on the rest of what they make.
I know, and that's so
There's
small.
something not fair about that. And if you want to make Social Security solvent, work on that. Make that tax structure equal and fair. For the person who's making $250,000, is it right for me to pay on that full 105 or 6, and he only pays on that 105 or 6? But then, that amount of money that's in that trust fund is greater, and it can be invested, and then we don't end up with an insolvency problem related to the Social Security trust fund.
We're embarrassed to live in a state where somebody who represents us makes such an asinine comment. And we want an apology for that.